Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Catalyst session from Short to Series. I'm your host and Director of Mentoring and Partnerships, Jennifer Platsky, and our guest today is Din Tai. He is an LA-based writer-director whose portfolio spans television, film, and commercials. His short film Monday aired on HBO and Cinemax, garnered over 50 festival awards, including first place in the inaugural HBO Asian Pacific American Visionaries competition, and is currently in development as a series. Most recently, he directed his second episodes of both New Amsterdam on NBC and Wu-Tang: An American Saga on Hulu. Welcome, Din. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Excited to chat about it all.
Yay, wonderful. So yeah, today we're talking about your film Monday and how, well, first of all, it won Best Short at Catalyst in 2018 when it was back in Vermont, and how it has evolved into a TV series. You already know that we at Catalyst love it and the production value is exceptional. So my first question in regard to that, with so many dynamic shows in our community right now, we are curious what your thoughts are on major networks and streaming platforms being ready to buy indie content directly from creators. Is that
Uh,
something that you think is in the future?
yeah, I think that's happening right now. I think partnerships are really important, meaning meeting the right producers, the right production companies, having a studio on your side. It's a big process. I think that the industry is very thirsty for any type of story that is interesting, and any person that is watching a lot of TV and film right now, you see it. It's across the board. It's all so different, and so it's the right place and right time for us to be making stuff.
Excellent, excellent. Um, so let's talk about Monday. Going back to the beginning, what was the genesis of the story?
Well, it was. It's kind of a long story, but the short of it is that HBO presented their first short films competition, and that was my reason to make something for it. Obviously, it was Asian centric, and and so I had some stories to tell, and my friends were making films at the time, and they still are. And I got really lucky to meet a group of really great guys who are all filmmakers, and they sort of inspired me to go back and write and try to make something because I hadn't written and directed a short since graduating film school in 2002. And then so fast forward to 2016 when we made Monday, it was that length of time that I had to, grow and figure out what I was trying to say and how to say it. And the story came to me pretty quickly. It's part of what I grew up with in Los Angeles. A lot of the issues that I went through with various groups of people, different cultures, and let that be part of the story, and then just try to make the story itself, somewhat interesting to watch, because that's always our goal as storytellers, is we take something pretty mundane and try to make it interesting.
um, was it your goal when you started out in the process to pitch it as a series?
The goal was to make something that I thought was special to myself, for
Mhm.
myself, and um, and after that grind of making content, I would kind of wanted to give up. And so the essence of what Monday was, the way I wrote it was that, okay, this is going to be my last swing. I'm just going to be done with any of this when when the short is done. And I kind of was like a last hurrah, ready to give up
Mm.
storytelling and filmmaking. But I wrote it in a way that left a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end, and that seemed to be successful, because if when you see the film, when you see the short at the end, you're left wondering what's going to happen next. And that was the goal. Like, if I'm gonna give up, I'm at least going to try to plant a seed.
That's so excellent. That's it's inspiring, honestly, because when you are, like you said, just grinding and producing, and it's hard work and it's frustrating, and there are definitely, I think any of us can you know identify with that. Like, everyone wants to throw in the towel. It's just like it's too hard. I can't do it. It's too expensive. There's whatever the reasons are. So that's awesome. That's really inspiring. Thank you.
Yeah, and you sort of want the universe to tell you that it's okay for you to continue. And
Yeah.
that was what Monday provided for me as a writer director. That the recognition kind of was a big pat on the back, like, hey, you can keep doing this. And then the years after Monday were also very challenging, but a lot of lessons inside of that.
Yeah. Excellent. Um, so in the process of shopping this as a series, if you can tell us a little bit about that process, and were there any cases or conditions under which you wouldn't agree to move forward with it if someone wasn't interested, or if someone was interested?
Yeah. Uh, I think that, well, I have to be honest, the success of the short provided a lot of meetings and general meetings, and so that was a gift in itself.
Hmm.
I really got a chance to meet a lot of different producers and production companies, and it was really, just trying to get to know people. Um, when I would share that Monday could be a series with production companies and producers, people were interested in hearing what the pitch would be. And at that time, I didn't really know what a pitch was for a television show. So I had to find out. And I realized how lengthy of a process it is to write a pitch and to really be thorough with it. And it was sort of exhausting. And I kind of was a snob about it because the short was there. Like,
Hmm.
what do you want me to pitch? That's it right there, and then you as a producer should be able to riff off of that and see that. But I didn't default to that reality. I wrote a pitch. I really thought about it, but when I would talk about the short becoming a TV series, it wasn't really a pitch. It was a conversation. Like, this is what I'm feeling about my life and the lives of my community, and the influence that my youth had on me, and these are the stories about it, and this is what Monday is going to deal with. And then I reconnected with one of my really good friends from high school. Her name is Lynette Ramirez, and we were acquaintances in high school, but when we reconnected, she had already gone through the TV industry, for a good 2 decades, and I was new to it. And I found this connection with her. Like, we grew up in the same neighborhood, we knew the same people, and she understood the story. And so when she found her way to the 20K, which is Ian Anthony Dale's production company, I immediately was like, yeah, I want to work with you, because I met Ian. He's a cool guy. Love him. Love the net. And that was the reason why, after 3 years of talking about the short becoming a TV series with different production companies, Lynette and Ian were the reasons why I partnered with them. And Lynette's no longer there. She's moved on to bigger and better opportunities. But that's the reason why I went with someone, because they got it, they understood it, and we weren't trying to build a relationship. We just understood each other, and
Right.
I don't think that you can ever reverse engineer that or engineer that forward. But that's what I look for, in people,
Hmm.
essentially, that I want to work with, is like, are you down? Because if we're both down, then we can talk about stuff that is, really, that dissects social issues and commentary, and not be afraid of it. And so that's the reason why. And the reason why I didn't go with some another production company, not that there was a lot knocking at the door, but the reason why I didn't was because, even though they were excited, they weren't down. They didn't share the same vernacular
Yeah.
that I had in describing and talking about what Monday could be.
That's definitely, I think that's a great point. I mean, so much of you have to find those people that get it. And maybe it's different for each project. It's just like, for certain things, like, someone's just not going to be the right fit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of across the board in this industry, right? Or any industry really. So yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And
Uh,
to further dissect it, you know, there's the business part of it, and then there's the art part of it. And I feel like the business is pretty standard.
mhm.
Not that I know everything about the business aspect of it, but it's pretty standard. It's money, it's time, and but the art of it is like that's what is special. The conversations when you can talk about the art, you know, when people are saying the things that um, that you're saying, but without you prompting it,
Right.
right? Because anyone can regurgitate something.
Certainly. And it makes a big difference too when, when it is something that's a personal story, something that, is part of your life, something that you understand inside and out that you lived. So that's, even more so you need someone on your team that really understands that and can, help execute that.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so obviously they spent time on the festival circuit and did very well. Did your success on the circuit with Monday influence the level of interest in the project or buzz around the project?
I would say yes and no to that. So, you know, obviously some festivals are highly regarded and it's a great trophy to have displayed next to your film.
Hmm.
But that doesn't really mean anyone has seen it, right? Anyone that has the capacity and the space in their life to bring you into their life to work with you, that it doesn't always guarantee that. So what I learned about the festival circuit is that it's a great experience. You get to meet a lot of great new people. You get to learn about yourself, and I'm speaking personally, I got to learn a lot about myself and improve upon myself. I don't know how to speak in public, and that's always a challenge. And so that was an opportunity for me to speak in public at the festivals because you have to get up on stage, and if you're lucky enough to be recognized for your work, you get up on stage, you address the people in the audience, you ask a few questions, and over a couple of years, that culminated to one of the biggest stages that I'd have ever had been on, which was the NBC Shorts Festival, and there were hundreds of people there, and the festival was celebrating a dozen filmmakers' work, and we all had to say something. We all had to answer questions. We had to be in the spotlight, and that's super uncomfortable for me. And
Yeah.
it took me 2 years to get up to that point. And so the success wasn't monetary or anything that had to do with the future of the short. The success came in a way of just self development.
Mhm.
Then anyone that I have met that wanted to talk about the short doesn't talk about the success of the short. They talk about the art.
Mhm.
And so that's a good sign. But who's to say? I don't know. Maybe if I make something and it goes back to one of those top tier festivals, and I don't have to name them, maybe that is a different experience. But I did meet a female director who had a film at Sundance, and she thought that the world would be at her knocking on her door afterwards, and she was like, "No, that's not what happened." And
Yeah.
it was a big eye-opening experience for her.
So interesting. And I think, yeah, in any festival, that is the greatest takeaway is, are those the connections that you make, the relationships that you build. And, it's like you meet someone and you make a connection, and 3 years down the road, something comes up and there's an opportunity for you to work together, or 10 years down the road, who
Yep.
knows, and I think that's the greatest thing
Yep.
about it, really,
Right.
is meeting other artists. And I definitely feel you on the getting up on stage thing and answering questions.
You're
That's
a performer. You should be used to that.
I know. I think it's different when the spotlight is on you and it's like a Q&A. I've become much more comfortable with it, but in the beginning I was the same way. I was like, "Ooh, this is terrifying. This is a big
Yeah.
room."
Good. And
Um,
to your point about the timeline in which you meet someone, I met Phil a few years ago, and then I met Nikki, and now I'm getting to hang out with you. You're like, those are the gifts.
yeah, agreed, agreed. And I think it's lovely because you never know at the time, where how things are going to work out, and maybe there's a person that you meet that you never see again. and maybe, it's just, I don't know, it's fascinating to me, and I think it's
Yeah,
great to be out there and meeting people.
yeah.
And
You could,
especially we get to do this now, even though we're in a pandemic and on opposite coasts.
yeah, right. And one could be a pessimist or an optimist about going to a festival and meeting people. You know, I feel like when I want something from someone, and I'm talking about from my past experiences, it's always just kind of odd. I'm being selfish, my ego's too loud. But when I go into just wanting to meet people and wanting to learn about people, there's no letdown.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah,
so
I
yeah,
mean, even if you don't end up, working with someone, it's like you have the experience of meeting that person and getting to experience at least what you're doing together, you know?
for sure. We're not painters stuck in a garage painting our own thing. Like we're salespeople as well.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And if you could be an honest and genuine person, the sales part is you don't even have to call it sales anymore.
Right, it does it all by itself.
Yeah, it sure does.
Um, so since you mentioned that you began, working on Monday, and I think you said 2016, correct?
Yeah.
So, what key elements do you think made the series or the short at the time timely and compelling for development?
That's a great question. I don't know that any of my answers are going to be that on point. I think that in reflection, the short is a lightning in a bottle effect.
Mm,
Um, I, but I don't want to take away the filmmaking inside of it. Like some of the choices that were made really makes the piece very sharp and modern.
mhm,
The story itself is not that interesting. It's not like someone went and shot themselves into space and found a different dimension and came back and saw their kid who they left when they were 10, die in a hospital bed. It's not mind-blowing stuff like that. But the challenge in us telling stories is how do you just tell like I mentioned earlier, how do you tell a mundane story in an interesting way? And
right,
that's what, if you think about what the news does every night, that's what they do. They take something very simple and they exaggerate it in a way
mhm,
that makes you scared for your life. And that's powerful. That's magical. And we have essentially the same tools when we tell narratives. Why is this simple story so interesting?
yeah,
And I feel like that's what Monday has, is that it has a lot of technique in it that builds thematically on the story, the simple story that's being told.
great. So in this process, is there anything that has surprised you about expanding Monday into a show, or were there things that you found that you just had to let go of, that you had to say, I have to just go. I was expecting it to go this way, and I just have to go this way with it.
I think what's surprising about making television is that everyone's busy. Everyone that is worthy to work with you on it is busy, and they may say no because they're busy. They may say no because they don't like the work, even though the work is well received. And I believe that when we're young and we're inexperienced, we think that our art is really impressive and that everybody should be a part of it. But when it comes to reality, you know, ain't nobody got time for you. And for me, ain't nobody got time for me. And so that was a good awakening. Like it's not that your art isn't good. It's just that the people that you want to work with may not have the time to work with you. And
Mhm,
learning that sort of takes the pressure off of the urgency of trying to get something made.
mhm. And again, it goes back to also, finding that right fit and that person that gets it, and hopefully, when those two things sort of come together, that someone does have time and they do get it, there, there's the nexus.
Yeah, sure.
So has your team throughout this process, has your team grown from the short in trying to in shopping it and developing it? Did new writers, producers, or other people become part of this process with you?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I can talk about it, for a long time. But in short, I was able to meet some managers and partner with them, and then met my agents and partner with them, and then finding and searching for a showrunner and having a showrunner jump on board only to have the showrunner back out about a year later. Um, and so the process is forever evolving,
Hmm.
and we're at the point where we're looking to meet with new showrunners, and what does that process look like? Do I want to be a showrunner? Does the showrunner want to be the showrunner? And so there's just a lot of, like, again, business to the art, which kind of stagnates the process a little bit. But that I'm okay with that. I'm using that word not in a personal way, but more in a literal way.
Hmm.
And what I had to let go of was just the expectation of the timeline. It's been it the short premiered 2017 in May, and what is it now? It'll be 5 years in May,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and nobody knows about it. So it's just one of those things where the art is good, and we're just waiting for the business thing to come together.
hmm,
And I have to be honest, I'm kind of over it. Like,
yeah,
I've did so much and I've worked on it so much that um, I'll quote one of Sting's famous songs. If you love somebody, set it free. And that's how I feel about the short. Like,
yeah.
I've even told some of my reps and producers that, like, I'm over it. You guys got to carry the
Yeah.
torch.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because so many things that we see, it's like I turn on the television and I see this series or I see a film, and it's like you have no idea that that first draft of that script was written 15 years ago or something to that effect. And
Yeah,
it's like it is such a long game. And yeah, I mean, after a while, it's like can even be like, being in a relationship. Like after a while, you're like, ready to move on.
yeah.
um
Maybe some chocolates once in a while. Maybe some flowers. How about just dinner and a conversation? Yeah, it
right.
feels that way. It does feel that way. Um, and I think that the lesson is finding other forms of the same art to be distracted by,
Hmm.
so that you don't I don't feel depressed about having this one egg sitting in this one basket.
Exactly. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the thing. Obviously it does take a long time, and in that process you evolve as an artist, you evolve as a person, you work on new and different things. So obviously what we're talking about is, did this help balance your creativity? And yeah, I suppose you do need to like have other outlets,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. I'm super blessed. Again, the short brought a lot of gifts. One of the other gifts is that I was able to use the short in my applications to a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion programs at the different networks, and I met a lot of great people there. And through that process, they were mostly directing programs to direct television shows. And through that process, um, I was able to meet Natalie Chaidez, who's the showrunner of Flight Attendant, the second season right now, and she show ran Queen of the South, and has been a writer in the industry for a very long time. She had her own idea, and she was looking for a writer to partner up with. I just have to be honest. I was the least experienced director and writer that she probably met, and but the process of taking the short and looking for opportunities in other places connected her and I together, because the people that I met in those programs mentioned my name to her, and that's how we met. And we co-wrote a pilot together that's at, you know, at a small network, or I shouldn't say small because people don't like hearing that, but we co-wrote a pilot, and it's in the works right now. So,
That's wonderful.
you know, and that was a good enough distraction from Monday.
Yeah.
Right. You're just like, okay, forget that thing that's not really going anywhere right now, and let's work on this new thing. So it's really trying to find, and it's really making something that gains recognition so that it can catapult you to other opportunities, and then those opportunities will keep you sane. They keep me sane and creative, and
Right.
learned a lot through Natalie. I consider her a great friend and mentor, and so those were the gifts that I got to receive as I was impatiently waiting for something to happen with Monday.
It's I totally I agree. I think that a lot of times, like, you have a certain expectation for a project, but what ends up happening is that or what ends up also happening is that it becomes a springboard
Other things.
into other things.
Yeah.
And maybe that ends up not moving forward, and maybe it does. And in any case, work begets work, and
Yeah.
that's great. And again, all about the relationships and those
Yeah.
connections.
Yep.
So in the world that we're living right now, and with this being a golden age of television, there is backlog of a backlog of productions, sort of, across the board. Where do you think that writers and directors should be focusing their efforts right now?
I think that I feel like there's three pieces of that pie right now. There's the showrunner, I should say there's the series creator, there's the director, and then there's the writer. And those three I'm just envisioning as a pie right now. And as a director, you kind of have to be making stuff and showing it to people in order to get a job directing on a TV show. As a writer, you have to be writing and submitting your work and hoping that you'll meet a producer or a showrunner that'll get you a job on a TV show. As a creator of a series, you could just be writing a pitch. So I feel like one of the answers to your very, you know, um, macro question is that if you have 10 ideas and you have 10 pitches, then you could just be doing that. And you literally aren't writing any scripts or directing anything, but you're just doing that. Now you're not getting paid for that, but the opportunity is that you get to meet a lot of um, executives at the studio, the network, and the production side. They get to know you, and then again, going back to people getting to know you, you become part of their world, and maybe they invite you in for the other two sections of that pie.
Right.
And so I've been very lucky to do a little bit of the three. I'm not a writer in a writer's room.
Hmm.
And I don't think I have the skill or the discipline to do that. But I've been lucky enough to write a pitch with Natalie and pitch that, which we pitched a handful of times, and then it was purchased. And then we were hired to write the pilot for it. And so you see the process. Like if you're a writer and you could write a bunch of pitches, maybe that's not the fast track, but at least you're not grinding on one script for a whole year, right?
Right.
The pitch is really interesting because you can really fantasize what the world is, and then through that process and then pitching it, you start to really see what that pilot could be.
Hmm.
And then when it comes time to writing it, you can get paid to write it. And so it's that the focus is what do you want. The question is, what do you want as an artist, and then how do you get there, and what are the things that are going to lead to that direction. And the more you know about the process, the more you'll have answers for yourself, right? So I was never a writer, and I was never a TV director or a series creator, but I met enough friends and colleagues to sort of learn about the process, and then kind of decide now at this point, decide what is worth my time and what's going to bring joy into the process. And so I'm not writing much, but I'm directing some TV stuff. After your kind and warm introduction, I recently directed an episode of The Good Doctor, and I'm working
Wonderful.
a block for In the Dark, which is a CW show. So, you know, I've been busy doing the directing thing. Do I want to write? Yeah, but am I a great writer and can I do it every day? No, it's just, I'm not, you know, I haven't programmed myself that way yet.
Right.
Do I have some ideas that I want to pitch? Of course, I have a lot of ideas that I want to pitch, but those ideas take time to write and get ready so that you can talk, so that I can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So my time is spent looking for directing jobs, meeting people in hopes to get some TV directing jobs, and thinking about some of the things that I want to pitch, and slowly just build brick by brick, jotting one paragraph down here and there about the various ideas.
Yeah. That's I think it's in this industry, you know, how you present yourself, or in what path you present yourself to other people is really important. And you know, it's all in the marketing, and knowing your strength, and knowing like how, you know, what other people, you know, because you want to keep working. It's like, yes, of course I want to do this, but this is what's going to bring me the work.
Yeah.
And you know, this is my strength at the moment, so like let's go with that.
Yeah.
And see, you know, like you said, like you're also like writing at the same time, and you're still always doing that, but you know, it matters like in the moment and now, and what's in front of you, like how you're presenting basically.
I'll share another example. So when I got out of college, I was lucky enough to direct a handful of TV commercials, which led to, you know, other work, but that dried up at some point. And what I was really good at was operating my own camera and editing my own work. And so I focused on that. And so I made some really short, tiny little short documentary pieces, and I got a chance to really work on my craft, how to talk to people, how to operate the camera, how to cut. And I found some success as an editor, as a promo editor for, you know, web content, ad content. And that was my jam for a very long time. And I would say that this past half of the year is the longest time that I haven't edited something, because I've been lucky enough to be working as a TV director. But that editing process and that time of my life gave me a chance to learn about directing and learn about relationships. And I would, if you were to say, hey, if you were to present to me, if I could go back in time and just become a director right away, would I? You know, the young me would say yes, but the me now would be like, no, I needed all that editing time. I needed all that.
Yeah.
Oh, you cut out for a second. I needed all that time to grow. So yeah, it was important. The most recent lesson I learned is that maybe if I'm making something that I'm not completely in love with content-wise, I'm still trying to develop myself as a person who appreciates other people, that wants to learn about other people, in hopes to gain, you know, something about myself in that process.
Wonderful. Tin, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bye, everybody.
Brought to you by the Catalyst Story Institute.